Hey, I'm Chris Murphy with Murphy Brothers in Boonville, Mississippi. Here to do another video in our walk around series. Again, a walk around is just where a customer buys a new tractor. We walk around that tractor with him, showing him dipsticks, grease fittings, and I say him, could be her, showing him all the stuff that he needs to do to maintain his tractor and operate his tractor. We're going to do this, and also what this does, it kind of gets the customer and the dealer on the same lingo as far as when they call and they have an issue. I don't know what a thingy is. I need to know what part they need. So like I say, hopefully this is good for everybody that's buying a tractor or has bought a tractor. Again, this is not a sales pitch. This is more for our existing customers. So stick with us. We're going to do a walk around on the 4500 series. This is actually the 4550. This tractor is available in the 4540 or the 4550. It's the 4500 series, the 40 horsepower or the 50 horsepower. This 50 horsepower, of course, is 10 more horsepower, and it has an auxiliary valve, slightly more money, but this is a 4550. Did this so I could show you where the valve is. So let's start off on the loader right here. Yet again, we do have a skid steer coupler, universal skid steer, so anything that fits universal skid steer style attachments will fit on here. So you're going to simply pull the levers up, pull both of them up, and I'm not sure that you can see in the video, but you can see the pin, what's happening down here. The wedge is going down and locking that coupler into the bucket. Now in these areas, you definitely want to keep those clean. You want to keep a little spray lube, something like that on there. If you walk by your tractor and it's been sitting there 5 or 6 weeks, just work the levers up and down a time or two. Keep it free. Freeze up is not fun. Now, all of these joints on these loaders do have recessed grease fittings. That way you don't knock them off and that kind of stuff. But people ask how often to grease. You know, I grew up around construction equipment every 8 hours. That's every work shift. Well, it's hard to keep up with 8 hours on a tractor because you're going to work 30 minutes today or 3 hours tomorrow. If you keep up with it 10 on the meter, if you do that, you'll be greasing it plenty. Another thing to remember, on your tractor, not necessarily drive lines and stuff with U-joints, but on your loader, on your tractor, on parts that move, you're really not going to over-grease that, because what you're doing is you're pushing the dirt out and putting more lubricant in where it needs it to keep from building friction. But every joint on this loader does grease. While we're talking about greasing, right down here, there is a grease fitting on the front trunnion for the front axle where the axle pivots. Now on the other side of the tractor, the rear trunnion greases as well. So you do have a grease fitting just like that on the back side of the axle, but from the other side of the tractor. You got a yellow sticker right here on the front axle oil dipstick. It's kind of hex headed. You put a wrench on that, open it up, there's a dipstick. That's where you check your front differential. Yet again, the front differential is completely independent. It does not, the oil doesn't flow from the transmission into that. So if you see a leak inside the wheel, if you see you're losing your gear lube in there, there is a leak somewhere. So you probably need to get to the dealer to get that checked out. Okay, moving on back, let's go look at the hitch. Oh, excuse me, early this morning. Okay, you do have a top link here, simple top link, just like anybody else's tractor. You do have a little keeper there to keep it up out of the way. I like that feature. You do have heavy lift arms on this tractor with heavy stabilizers. Now if you notice, well, they're still new, but you got a category 2 ball for a larger pin, but you can also pivot this around once you get the paint off of it. I'm not sure you can see it all, but you've got a category 1 hole here. So if you got some of your implements that's got the small pin, category 1, versus some of it's got category 2, you just rotate those balls around. You do have a heavy drawbar here, and this will swing side to side just by moving this pin. You can keep it over here, keep it over there. Main thing with the drawbar, make sure when you're running a PTO shaft, a drive shaft on a cutter or a tiller or anything like that, if that drawbar is sticking out too far and you go over the top of a hill, the drawbar could come up into the PTO shaft. So you may want to remove that when you're using something with a PTO shaft. Now, this right here is your 540 PTO. It's going to slide on, work just like any other PTO. You do have auxiliary valve on the 4550. We can add that to the 4540 if you desire. All right, here you see a yellow sticker. It says transmission breather. you can actually adjust that seat and get to that and feel from that point if you'd like. It's probably a little easier than going through the transmission, but it's just kind of your preference. You can actually check it and add it into the transmission housing. Okay, let's walk around and get in the platform. You see right here? All right. Just like a lot of the other joysticks, you do have a lock. This keeps somebody from letting the loader down on top of your head with a joystick. I like that. I don't have to put all my faith into that. When I've got the loader raised up, I'm always going to scotch that up where it can't fall on me, because even though this stops the joystick from moving, it does not stop a cylinder from blowing, hose from coming loose, whatever. Things happen. And like I say, your head is not as heavy as what that loader is designed to go through. So don't want that hitting you on the noggin. Okay. Starting off here beside the seat, you got a lever here. This lever is going to work that auxiliary valve in the back. Push it one way, it's going to put pressure to one side. Pull it back, it's going to put pressure to the other. This tractor does have draft control, depth control on your 3-point hitch, and position control. Up and down is going to be worked with a longer, taller stick, and it's got a black knob. DC stands for draft control. The further you have this down, the deeper it's going to allow that plow to go. As you pull this back up, that is going to sense the load and keep it back up to a level wherever you've got this set to. And just like the other models we've talked about, you've got your drop speed, open and close. The more open you have it, the faster the 3-point hitch will drop. The more closed you have it, the slower it's going to drop. But if you do turn it all the way in, the hitch will go up, it won't come down. Get that call a lot, so make sure you don't screw in that all the way in on that needle valve. You do have your differential lock right here. Differential lock makes the rear end pull positive traction, pulling together both rear tires. Park brake, of course. This park brake is much easier to set by deploying the brakes first with your foot. Pull it up, it's a lot easier to remove. Mash down with your foot on the brakes and then let this down. Okay. Transmission and range. Transmission and range. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 in reverse. This is a non-synchronized shift, so when you shift this, you're going to mash the clutch and stop, just like you do in the range. So you've got 2 ranges and 4 speeds forward, 1 reverse. So that times 2 gives you 8 forward, 2 reverse. Very simple transmission. I'm going to come around, we're going to talk about how to operate the clutch in just a moment. I was talking about a while ago where you can check your transmission hydraulic fluid level. You can check it right here. You can actually add through the same port, but sometimes it's easier to let the seat forward and put it into the rear. Just depends on what your preference is. While we're talking about the seat is a spring adjustment for suspension. Very nice seats on these tractors. That is one of the most comfortable seats I've ever been around. I've been around tractors all my life. I'm a 3rd generation dealer. I like the Mahindra seat. That is a great seat. Now, your PTO lever is right here. That is how you engage your PTO. That's got a little stem on it, and it's got a hole in the housing, so you push it away from you, out to the side, pull it into gear, and the peg goes into another hole to keep it there. Back the opposite, but you do clutch it. I'm gonna come around and we're gonna cover the clutch right quick. Your clutch, you see this right here? I'm just taking my fingers from free rest all the way till it first starts taking a little pressure. That's what you call free travel. If you ride your clutch, not letting your foot all the way off the clutch, all that's gonna go away. That's a telltale sign you're all riding your clutch, and clutch is not covered under warranty unless something really went haywire, but it does not cover premature wear, so don't ride the clutch. Number 1, you push it down, right there. There's a little detent in there. It kind of feels like it wants to stop. So when you mash the clutch halfway down, this is what you call a 2-stage clutch. So when you mash it halfway down, that stops the tractor from moving. Now you can shift your gears, that kind of thing, once you're stopped. When you mash the clutch all the way down, you mash it all the way down, that's when you're clutching the PTO. That's where you can turn the PTO off and on, and it stops the motion of the PTO. Now granted, if you got a cutter or something like that with momentum, it's going to continue to run. But like I say, halfway down stops the tractor, all the way down stops the PTO. Okay. let's raise this hood. Before we do that, you add your fuel right here. You do have to have a key. You open this up with a key. You do have a fuel cap underneath here, and there is a strainer in that. Use that strainer. Like we've said in other videos, we've seen fishing floats, shop towels, acorns, a lot of stuff floating in fuel lines or in the fuel tank, and that stops up your fuel line, and it's not gonna let fuel get to it. With no fuel, it ain't gonna run. So make sure you're buying good clean fuel, put it in a good clean container, and strain it as it's going in, okay? Now, right up front, your battery and your air filter are right in this area right here. So it's much easier to take, you got 1 and 2 of these on each side. So there's 5 little long slotted screws. You can actually do it with a quarter. But open those up, take that grill off, and you can get to your battery much easier than you can even with the hood raised up, okay? Now, I've already removed the pin on this other side to keep this grill guard up, just to save a little bit of time. Just got 2 pins, 1 on each side. Pull the hairpin, pull the pin, let this down, okay? You've got a handle to raise the hood right here. You got it on both sides. You push this down and pull out on the side of the hood on both sides of the tractor. Once you've got that done, the hood will lean forward, okay? Mahindra does a real good job on these engines. This is the MCRD, Mahindra Common Rail Diesel. They spent multi-million dollars trying to get this engine where it does not regen. This tractor does not have a diesel particulate filter. Somehow they have figured out how to do it with a catalytic converter, so it is a very neat engine. I get this question a lot. Right here is your fuel pump. People see 2 lines coming off of that. Well, that's not a 2-cylinder. This is a 4-cylinder engine. That's not a injection pump. That is a high pressure pump. You're feeding the common rail up here. You've got computer controlled injectors that are firing in the order that the computer tells it to. Now, right here with the white dot, that's where you would add engine oil. Right here on the front cover. You do have 2 fuel filters. Both of these have got a drain. This one's got a little bolt under it, and this one has got one you can turn by hand. If you got water in the fuel, you can turn this by hand, let the water out. When you got good clean fuel coming out the bottom, tighten it back up. You do have a primer pump that you can pump it, okay? Now your engine oil dipstick, engine oil filter, that kind of thing's on the other side. You see right through here, you got a yellow dipstick. Very easy to get to. You do have an engine oil filter, and of course, granted, you're gonna get that from underneath. Very easy to get to. You do have a hydraulic filter here. And of course, it does come with a toolbox. Now, while we're here, take a look at a couple things about this tractor. Look how long, see this loader frame comes from all the way right here. This is the front bumper here, or the front grill guard, but from right here, all the way back here. That does give that loader a lot more strength, and the chassis, it builds in more strength into the chassis. Your loader's also tied all the way back to the back of the tractor. There again, giving you more strength. Something else, I'm gonna let this hood down so we can see. You may not be able to tell this in the dark, but what this loader frame is connected to is cast iron. This whole front piece underneath all this is cast iron, like an old tractor's got. This is kind of in the family of the tractors that brought Mahindra to the dance. Don't know how legal it is to say, and I'm not going to get into that, but basically from the bell housing back, that's an old tractor very similar to what my granddaddy sold. So, like I say, very, very familiar with that transmission differential rear axle housing. I like that fact of that tractor. This tractor is very heavy. Now, I think that covers the 4540, 4550. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call us. We're Murphy Brothers in Booneville, Mississippi. Our phone number is 662-720-0022. Find us online at MURPHYBROTHERSTRADING.COM. Give us a call if we can help you. Thank you very much.